This is Jenny Kunkel, and in this video we will walk through the installation of Oracle SQL Developer, the full IDE tool. If you want to go ahead and install the Visual Studio Code and the SQL Developer extension for that, you can go ahead and do that. We're also going to be installing the sample database schema for Oracle, at least 2 of them. There's a number of the schemas. We'll just be installing 2 of those in this walkthrough. To begin with, we can go to oracle.com/database/SQL developer/technologies/download. There's going to be a link within the assignment. You can just click on it, but if you don't have it readily available, you can go ahead and type in that URL. Once we look at the page, we have the full-blown IDE that is available for Windows and for macOS. If you're going to download it, I would recommend taking the version that has the JDK included. It makes life so much easier if you pick that. There is the SQL Developer extension for Visual Studio Code. Know that you do not need to download it from Oracle's site. You can install it from the marketplace pretty easily. We can go through that at the end of this walkthrough. Once you have that downloaded, I've already gone ahead and pre-downloaded the files. I can go ahead and extract this. And I am going to extract it to my C drive. I'm not going to specify any other path. It's going to extract it as C:\SQL developer when I just indicate C:. I go ahead and extract it. If I go to my C drive and search for SQL Developer, I should see my folder that I just extracted. I need to run the SQL Developer. I can always go ahead and create a shortcut or pin it to the start or whatever I want to do. I'm just going to go ahead and launch it. When you open it up, you may get some type of an initial dialog that indicates whether you want to import preferences or settings. You want to make sure that you say no, and then it should continue to the screen. In my case, it didn't do that because I have had SQL Developer previously installed, and that's why it didn't pop up for me, but you may see that happen. The very first thing that we want to do is we want to create a connection to the XE-SID instance of the database, and we can do that by clicking on the green arrow. This is going to bring up a dialog that's going to allow us to define our new database connection. I'm going to call this XE. The user information that we're going to use, we're going to connect as the sys account with a role of sysdba. We want to be able to run schema in, so we need a DBA role. We need to also use our password. If we go back to our Docker instance, we had our env file, and we have the password of admin that we'll be using. I'm going to come back here and put in admin. I'm going to test my connection before I save my password. The next thing we want to do is put in our local host. We also have our port, and if I go back to my Docker compose file, we can see that we exposed that 1521 internal port outside of the container using the port 11521. We want to add 11521 as our port instead of the 1521. We are going to connect with the SID of XE. If I go ahead and test it using the test button, it should show me a success. If it shows me success, then I can go ahead and save my password and connect to the database. At this point, we should be connected to our database. We can go ahead and expand our XE node, and this is going to show us all the different things that are part of our database. We have tables and views and indexes, etc. One of the very first things we want to do is we want to look at one of the views that's going to show us our multi-tenant container database and our pluggable database. we want to look for the name of our pluggable database. I'm going to go ahead and reconnect because I'm not seeing my SQL window, and I want to be able to add a SQL command and execute it. The command that I want to execute is going to be against the $services. Now I could just go through the views, I could locate that in the tree, and I could look at the data from that perspective, but it's going to give us lots of scrolling with columns, etc. I just want to get the name and the PDB column, so I'm just going to execute a select statement with the name column and the PDB column. This is going to be from the $services view. And I want to order this by the name column. Let's just go ahead and highlight this. Use the green arrow to execute that command. When we do that, it's going to give us the query result, and it's going to show us the DB. Now this CDB $root, that is an indication of the multi-tenant container database. We have the sys $background, sys $users, the XEXDB. Those are all part of that multi-tenant container database. What we want is this PDB of XEDB1. That is our pluggable database. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that value, place it over in a scratch area, because we're going to need that value to update a script that we download. The next thing we want to do is we want to go to our Oracle samples, where we can go ahead and download a couple sample database scripts that we can run in to create like the human resource, etc. So this is going to be just a zip file you download. I will put this link in the assignment. I'll also post it on the YouTube video as well. I've already gone ahead and downloaded and extracted that file. I'm going to switch over to my extracted directory, and within that we find that we have multiple directories. Each one of these is a sample schema. We will be loading the first two, the customer orders and the human resources. If we drill into this, we will see that we have some SQL files here. This is going to give us the ability to run schema into the database, and we will start with the co_install, which will then go ahead and include this co_create and the co_populate. I'm going to switch back to my SQL developer window here. I want to open the file menu with an open command. Unfortunately, this is not the most user-friendly dialog for searching for your files, so you have to drill into whatever directory that you place that in. In my case, it's in my CIS-254, and there it is. I'm going to go into the customer orders and load the co_install. It's going to have a bunch of comments here. That's what the rem stands for. Then it's going to set the echo off, do a verify, set headings, set feedback, etc. Then it's going to go ahead and spool everything that happens as part of the script for the execution. Now, before I get to installs and the spooling of the log file, I want to go ahead, and this is the statement I want to add. This is an alter session set container equal, and this is going to be the XEPDB1. Every command that we execute should be terminated with a semicolon, so that's a good practice to do here. I'm going to alter the session and set that to the pluggable database before it tries to go through and create the user account. If I don't do that, it's going to show an error. I'm going to go ahead and try to run this now. When I run a script, I have two options. We've used the single statement where I can run one statement with the green arrow. If I have a whole set of commands that I run all at once, I can go ahead and run my script. I can click on this, it's going to ask me what my instance is of the database, and we want to be in our XC when we run this. Say OK. It's going to prompt us for the user password. I'm going to enter COPass. Whatever you put in, you need to remember what that password is because we're going to have to set up a database connection with that user account. I'm going to go ahead and say OK. It's going to ask for the table space. Notice it's showing us that the users is the default table space. I can go ahead and just accept that. And I can go ahead and say yes to overwrite anything that might possibly be there. We can see that it's going through and populating the tables after it's already created them. It starts with creating the user account. It creates the tables, any indexes, populates the tables, and then it gives us feedback that it has completed successfully. If we want to look at the results, we have them spooled to a text file in our directory as well. We could always open it up. It's going to show us the same information. Let's see if I can get it open here. Just put it in Notepad. If I bring that over, this is essentially the results that were performed as part of that execution of that script. We're going to go back and essentially we're going to close this because we've already run it in. I'm going to save the changes because I made the change to add the alter statement. I'm going to go ahead and open up the HR install. So file open, it should give me the previous directory. I can just scroll up one level and go into the HR. And this time I'm going to do the HR install code. And this is essentially going to be the same thing. Right before I try to go into spooling the file, I want to go ahead and add my alter statement, alter session, set container. And this is going to be equal to the xepdb1. Once I have that, I can go ahead and run my script. Again, it's going to ask me for the connection, say OK. It's asking me for the password. I'm just using a lowercase HR pass. Again, I'm going to accept the default for the users, and I'm going to say yes to overwrite it. We can see the results down here. Similarly to what we've done before, it's going to save out that in a log file in the HR directory. If we go into the human resources, we should see that we have a text document for that HR install that has all of the results of that script run. Now, if I go back, the next thing I want to do is create database connections to our HR and CO users. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the plus sign. And in this case, I'm going to just make them named based off of whatever the user is. In this case, it was CO. My username is going to be CO. I'm going to type in my password that I entered, which in my case was COPass. This is going to be using a service name this time of xepdb1. And I also have to change my port to reference the port that's on the outside of that exposed container, which is that 11.521. I want to go ahead and test my connection. It has a success. I can go ahead and save my password and then connect. If I go ahead then and expand the tables, we can see the tables that we just ran into the database. And if I click on the first one and I select the data tab, it's going to show me data that was loaded. I can do that for each one of the nodes. So that table is created. I want to go ahead and create a new database connection, this time for the HR. It's going to be my username HR. Used the password HR pass. Again, I need to update my port. This is going to be using the service name xepdb1. That's our pluggable database. I'm going to test my connection. It's showing success. I can save my password and connect. When I do that, now on my HR, I should see my tables, and it's showing me countries. I'm still on that data tab, so I can just kind of go through each one and see that I have some data there that I can use now for SQL statements to query and do different things with throughout the class. When I come into SQL Developer and try to have an assignment that I need to work within the database, I'm going to just come in, click, and then I can go ahead and connect. It will not be connected. So if I would disconnect, this would be coming in, and I would connect, and then I could get started putting in any SQL statements that I would need to execute to query the data or insert, update, or delete anything that's in the database. Hopefully this makes sense. Now, if you want to see how Visual Studio Code works with the SQL Developer plugin, that extension, we can go ahead and download Visual Studio Code if you do not already have it installed. They have versions for Windows and Mac. You can get that at code.visualstudio.com/download. I already have it installed. I'm going to switch over to that. I still have my Docker container stuff up here. I'm just going to go ahead and close out of that folder before we try to install any type of extension. We have our extension option here. This is the thing with the squares with one missing. If we click on that, it's going to give us a list of the things that are already installed on our computer. I have a whole bunch of stuff. We can go ahead and start looking for SQL Developer, and we should see the SQL Developer extension for Visual Studio Code in the marketplace. We can go ahead and just click on the install, and that should go through the process of installing that extension for us. Take a few seconds here to get that all working. We can always refresh, and when we see it in the list, we know that it's installed. Notice now I have a new icon down the side. This is SQL Developer. I'm going to go ahead and click there to get started. This is how we get into SQL Developer. I can go ahead and create the connections. I'm going to go through and create the CO and the HR, the same that we did within SQL Developer, the full IDE. I'm going to start with the connection name, and this is going to be CO. Then I'm going to go ahead and put in the username with the user password. So mine was CO pass. I want to test the connection before I can save it. We have the option to test down here as well. I want to then go ahead and put in my host, which is local host with a port change. We want to put that 11521 if we didn't change it within our Docker Compose file. And then this is going to be our pluggable database, the XEPDB1. We can go ahead and test that. We can see that it passed that connection, so I'm going to go ahead and save that password and then go ahead and save that. I've gone ahead and established one connection. I can go ahead and click on the plus sign, go through and do the HR as well. So typing in the connection name of HR, then the username, the password, localhost, updating the port, and using the XEPDB1, test the connection. It's successful, so I'm going to go ahead and save that. Then I can go ahead and get into the CO, and I can see all of the tables. I can click on the table similar to what we had before. I can click on the data tab and see this. If I want a worksheet that I can query something, maybe I want to select something from the customers table, I can come up to the database, the CO, and right click there and open a SQL worksheet. And then at this point, I can go ahead and do a select asterisk from customers. Typically, we put this on a second line, terminate the statement with a semicolon. If I highlight the statement, I can run it with this arrow over here, and it's going to show me the results down below in a table grid view. That's how we can utilize SQL Developer within Visual Studio Code as well. If you have any questions on how to get SQL Developer installed, the full IDE, or if you choose to install it within Visual Studio Code,